it on all this time.
No, they wait for the announcement.
I know. You folks.
Did everyone get their own copies of this?
Good evening, welcome to the regularly scheduled Goffstown Planning Board meeting for November 18th, 2021. As usual, we begin our meeting with introductions, and I'll start with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Mark Lemay, Select Board Rep.
Gail LeBrecq, alternate and recording secretary.
Tim Redmond.
Barbara Griffin?
Kimberly Peace.
Jim Raymond.
David Pierce, an alternate.
Thank you. Since Phil is not here yet and Karen is not here, I will ask David and Gail to vote on matters until or if Phil shows up. All right, the first thing on the agenda is the minutes of October the 28th. We did not vote on them at a prior meeting. I can't remember why, but we
Because they
did.
got revised.
They got revised. Okay, so all that to do say revised right there. So, the minutes of October 28th. Somebody?
I don't think I was at that meeting, was I at the meeting?
I move we approve.
I'll second.
Kimberly, you were there.
Thank you.
I would.
Motion to approve the revised minutes of November 24th by Jim Raymond, seconded by Kimberly Peace.
Of what? November 4th? November 4th.
No,
No,
October
October 28th.
No, 28.
Yeah.
They were
Well,
revised.
why- Oh, they were revised on November 4th, excuse me. I read the revised thing.
And who seconded it?
I did.
Kimberly did.
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Yeah, I see.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if I was here for that meeting. I just need to find out.
Yeah, Carlos was here.
Collis was here at that meeting.
Okay, so I will abstain then. Thank you.
Okay, so we have 2 abstentions. Got all the vote? Yeah? The second is another set of minutes from November 4th. So I'll ask for changes or a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Gail, I thought you made a nice job of making our zoning discussion look more coherent than it felt like it sometimes.
It wasn't easy to do.
You can see the name on the top of that.
Is there any
Carlos was here, so I was.
Is there any discussion on the motion as related to the minutes of
Who seconded?
November 4th?
I did.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly.
Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. You'll have to hold on, Phil, because you're not in right now.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
Okay.
You've been alternated.
So Phil is now voting,
You're the
and
only alternate? I mean, the only abstention?
Yes.
Phil is now voting, and if it's all right with you, Gail, I'll have David vote.
Absolutely.
All right, David, you'll be voting on matters tonight.
Yes.
So the, under old business, is that what it is? Yeah. Under old business, there was an application for map 9, lots 15, 16, and 18. Could you please give us the latest on this application, Joanne?
Yes, I met with the owner yesterday, and he decided to withdraw this particular application. He's going to redraw something a little bit different and come back at a later date.
So that doesn't require any action by the board?
No.
So if he does come back at a later date, he's going to have to do all the noticing and everything, redo
Yes,
all the
he'll
noticing?
start all over again.
So they are withdrawing the application?
Correct.
Okay, there's no reason to discuss it any further. So under new business, we have map 15, lot 159, 9 Roosevelt Street in Pinardville, I assume, yes?
Yes.
Okay, could you give us the rundown on that application, Joanne, please?
Sure. We have with us tonight Dr. Russell Mann, who has an office on Roosevelt Street. He's been there for several years, and he has a dental office, and he would like to add a very small addition of 122 square feet. He needs additional space for his examination or his, I don't know what it's called exactly, but the room that he works in. And the equipment has gotten larger over the years, and he just needs more room to maneuver around when he's in there working on a patient. So he's basically adding a 3-foot addition to the existing dental office, which will be 1.5 feet at its closest point from the front of the property, where 10 feet is required, and 6.5 feet from the front of the property along Laurier, where 10 feet is required. He did go to the zoning board of adjustment and receive variances for those 2 setbacks, and he's here tonight to request approval for this small addition.
Any board members have any questions for Joanne at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask Dr. Mann to come up if he's going to make...
Can we find that the application is complete and
Okay, thank you, Jim.
waive the...
So I need a finding on the application from someone.
I'll make a motion that the application is complete and that there is no regional impact based on the plan location.
I'll second it.
That was Barbara and Phil.
I should also add that he is not requesting any waivers.
So there's a motion to find the application is complete and ready for review. There are no regional impacts. So we have a motion for that, so can I have a vote on that, please? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Vote passes.
Bill, did you need a second? You get a second?
Phil
I think-
seconded it.
Thank you.
Barbara and Phil. Okay, so now, Dr. Mann, come on up, please.
I thought Earl was coming to do this tonight, so this will be fun.
That's what I thought.
He usually does, but he's not here, so it's really all about me, so.
So you
Take that
can,
off
so
the
you
bill.
can deduct it, yeah, I'm gonna deduct it from his invoice.
Yeah, better check the invoices.
It sounds very straightforward, so you don't have to be technical with this, you can just give us, in layman's terms, give us the rundown, if you would, please.
Perfect. So, so what I'm trying to do is expand my surgical suite in the 3rd room, which is at the corner of Laurel and Laurier and Roosevelt Street. I originally had thought about putting an addition in the back, and it seemed to affect the parking more, so I didn't need a lot more, I just needed a little bit more. And I didn't want to move my surgical suite, I just wanted to expand it. And it is in that 3rd room, which is the room that's right on the corner. And so I just thought this might be a great idea, if I could get it past the zoning right and the planning, that it makes more sense to me. So it's really about just having a little bit more room, because there's more of us, there's more bodies in the operatory when I'm doing surgery than there is normally. So normally that room is big enough for doing general dentistry, but for doing surgery, it needs to be a little bit bigger. And so really, that's basically all I'm trying to do, is just make it a little bit bigger.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Joanne, do you have anything to add at this time?
No, there are a list of proposed conditions, and Eric also had
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
I have questions on those too.
Okay.
Boy, Eric, you're on the spotlight.
And let me lead off with mine, if I may. You put in condition number 9, RSA 236-39. I question whether that statute applies. I don't think it does. That's a new provision. Didn't know he used that before. Because he doesn't encroach on the highway. He may have encroached in the town's right of way. And if you look at that section in the statutes, it's on actual obstructions of highways and passage, in my view. Now, maybe there's a different view on that.
So before he responds, Eric, could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Yeah, Eric Hutchison, DPW Engineering. To get to your point there, I sat down with Adam Jacobs, the DPW director, and we were kind of looking at that situation. We pulled that out of the Hard Road to Travel book, and we were kind of hoping that the board could give us some insight on how they want to handle it, because we did have lawyer expertise versus just looking at it through the Hard Road to Travel book. They are all existing encroachments in the town right-of-way. They're not necessarily conflicting anything. It was just having a approved plan showing these, then would it then infer that that was approved to be encroaching in the town right away? So that was the concern that we were trying to address with that.
So,
Right.
Barbara?
So does this plan show the right-of-way? Because I was confused by the list as versus looking at the street, because I didn't see, I see the edge of paved way.
Yep, so it's very, it's the thicker black line, it runs.
This one, right?
Wait a minute, I'll look at the
Yep.
big plan, that's probably better.
Yep, so if you see the building,
Yeah.
see the tighter hatched line where the new addition is? On that far outside edge, kind of where it says 260, see that fatter black line? That's the right-of-way line.
The 260 line is the right-of-way lane or
Nope,
the
nope.
black line?
Just to the north of that, the thicker black line of where it says 260.
Oh, you're talking about
I
the
can't-
one,
I don't see
Eric,
the
that has the
260.
big arrow pointing to it?
Yep, yep, actually, that might be a better thing, the big black arrow.
Okay.
And does that
That's-
represent?
Direction of traffic.
That's for, yeah, but that's probably a better thing to call it out as. But yes, that is the town right-of-way line, and you can see
Conversely, is it his property line?
property line, right-of-way line,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
So where are the, quote, encroachments on the plan?
I guess if we start to the left of the large arrow, you can see that island that says LSA.
Okay.
So that's a landscape raised curbing. That whole paved shoulder there, I think at one time that was used as parking. That's one of the other notes that I have in there. But is that considered more driveway area? It's not part of the road, it's kind of listed as a paved shoulder. Continuing to the right, then it wraps and heads kind of north. Then there's another sloped garden area, which says sloped asphalt curb. That's kind of a garden planting bed. There's a set of small brick walkway in that same area. Then continuing north more, there's another raised granite island kind of delineating the parking area.
So the reason you are outlining these is just to make it a statement that these are in the right-of-way and they are encroachments, but you don't see them as a problem? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's difficult for DPW to, it's not an issue for us per se, for like plowing or anything, but we can't grant and say that this is an allowed use in the right-of-way. So we are not allowed to give permission on that. I believe it has to go to town vote, because we've discussed that with the selectmen on a couple of different issues. So I'm just not sure how the town wants to handle that.
Would this be something similar to the situation a year and a half, 2 years ago, where a brick wall was built on a road right up to the apartment?
It
Right
probably-
up to the pavement?
Yes, it would probably be
So
similar.
It's an encroachment.
It's, yes, yeah, and where you guys are approving a plan, it's now shown on paper. Not sure how it should be addressed.
Bill?
I just have a couple of questions on it. How long has that existed?
I'm not aware, I don't know.
It doesn't matter, you don't get prescriptive rights against the municipality.
No, I'm not saying that, it's just that,
Not from a legal standpoint, from a title standpoint.
Well, it'd give us an idea of how much of an issue it is if
Yeah.
it's been there a long time.
well, yeah, because I mean, in the past, we've had many places in Penardville.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I know.
I misinterpreted your point. Keep going, forget what I just said.
Okay, I
Well,
will.
no, it was true.
No, it's true, but it wasn't the point. Phil's making a different point,
Right,
not that
the
one.
different
yeah.
point is, we have many places in Penardville
Yeah.
that parking has been in the right of way. And even when we did, we run into that issue, even when we did the corridor improvement on Mast Road, where, I'll give you a typical one, was over by King Lanes, where the carpet place has that spot in it. And when it came time to do that, it was difficult So they kind of stayed the way they were, and we've had those issues. Another one, I mean, I can give you specifics, but I don't want to say specifics, but we have many places where there's no curbing, where there should be curbing, because there never was any curbing. So they've been existing, and I don't know if it's really an issue. I mean, we understand, we recognize that it's in the right of way, that it's not, doesn't belong there, but I don't see the issue.
Is there a remedy that the selectmen grant some relief or something? Did you mention that?
There has been that discussion before, but I think there's been some new laws put in place that I'm not even sure if that's how that's allowed or how that's handled currently.
Okay. Could, for discussion purposes, could we add a note to the plan, note 21, that states that all improvements shown in the right-of-way are, you know, Eric is saying that if it's on the plan, it shows that it's allowed. Is there a note we can add that will act as a disclaimer?
How about the accurate depiction of existing conditions does not constitute permission for use of property in the right-of-way?
There you go, something like that, and we make that note 21, and that moves the application, but keeps the DPW's concerns noted,
Yep.
duly noted.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Barbara, the expert on this, so,
I-
or lawyer,
I'm not,
lawyer.
Planning board
Jim's got his
member.
phone
Planning
out,
board
so-
member.
it's Jim.
Jim has a good
If that's the-
vocabulary,
So, no, I agree with what Barbara just said.
So could you tell Joanne what to put down for note
Barbara
21?
just said it.
Okay, did you
Gail
get
got
it?
it. No, Gail.
I didn't
Gail.
get the whole thing. An accurate depiction of existing conditions doesn't constitute something in the right-of-way.
I think I said the approval of this plan with the depiction of existing conditions in the town right-of-way does not constitute whatever I said.
It can say an approval of any encroachments.
An approval of encroachments.
Because, I mean, Phil's right, they're all over the place.
The point I was making is, if they're there, they don't gain title, but
Right.
as a matter of fact, they are there, so we've worked around it, because it's,
So Doctor, has your billing rate like tripled to Earl now that we've had this discussion about what's going on in the
So I was
encroachment?
just getting ready to say, you guys are gonna have to explain to the dumb dentist what you just said. Because,
What-
to answer your question earlier, so I've owned the building since '95, and the entrance for the building used to be right where the 260 is, but on the building. So if you went just north of the little number 260 right there, so the entrance to the building before was from Roosevelt Street, and where the proposed addition's gonna be is a flower bed. And so the pavement has always been up to the flower bed, because it's a brick flower bed that's been there
I think,
since when I bought it.
I believe what they're saying is that these improvements that are outside of your lot line, that are in the town right-of-way, are normally not allowed. But they're an existing condition that doesn't pose a problem at this time.
Did you even know that you had things on your property that were in the right-of-way? Right.
See, now you found it out.
Yeah, okay.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve the integrity of the DPW's request, because what happens is sometimes if they have to go through there and do drainage work or something, those type of improvements that are in the right-of-way sometimes get removed.
Got it.
So the point would be that we're preserving the plan without stating that the improvements are stated now that they're allowed in the right-of-way because they put it on a plan. It's a lot of mumbo jumbo.
I get it. The improvements are inside the black line.
The ones that are outside the black line. The curbing for your parking area, for the,
Those have been, yeah, those, I'm sorry.
they may have been there for a long time, but they're not on your property. Kimberly?
And can I just make a point too, and make sure I'm correct? So say a traveler should accidentally hit that landscaped area that's outside of their property and on our right of way, we're saying that it's the owner's responsibility for that because they put that landscaped area there.
I'm not saying that.
Oh boy, okay.
We're getting way
We won't
into
get into
this.
that, okay.
Yeah.
I just
We're
was
going
curious.
way
about that.
beyond this, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
way beyond.
Okay.
So, any more discussion on the improvements that are not on Dr. Mann's lot? Kimberly?
For the engineering, it looks like the rest of it is mostly engineering comments. Eric, do you feel like those are able to be resolved between the two of you?
Yeah, I believe so. The only other thing that I'd like to note is making sure that there's no parking that would, in that paved area as you're exiting Laurier Street, looking right in that paved area. It looked like there was some old striping. It looks like it was blacked out at some point in time. So I don't know if it's something that we want to put a condition of a no parking sign or something like that, just to make sure that.
Where are you looking?
Coming out onto Lawyer, turning right?
Yep, turning right, so directly in front of where the new addition's going to be, that area by the 260 where it says paved shoulder. If a vehicle were to park there, overflow parking or something like that, just making sure that
Talking over there.
there's no parking.
It would be an obstruction for a person exiting Laurier Street.
Correct.
And looking to
Oh, I
their
see.
right.
Correct.
Where's the 260-year-old?
I think we're overdoing it. If people have been parking there for the last
Oh, that- okay.
20 years, now we're gonna say a condition, you can't have a car parked there because it might obstruct the view coming out of Laurier Street? I don't like that one. I don't think we should put that in.
I mean, we don't have, are there marks for parking there or not?
It looked like there was some old ones. I don't know if the people have been parking there or not. When I met.
No, I meant like striping.
No, there's no physical
Okay.
striping there. At one point in time, there might have been, but it looks like they were blacked out at some point.
Number 8 says a private drainage maintenance agreement shall be signed for the leaching catch basin dry wells. Do they show on the print, Eric, that I'm not seeing them?
They do, yep. To the, it says DW2, DW1, to the
To the
west
second
and
page,
east
Matt?
of the building.
I usually be able to read prints, I can't
Yep.
find it.
So you know where the addition is,
Yes?
that hatch, there's a
Okay,
larger.
DW1, okay.
Yep,
Oh, it
All right,
is
DW2 's in the
and
front.
DW2 over there.
Now, what are they catching? They're catching parking lot water?
There was roof runoff of the additional, roof drains. They're gonna tie into that, so it doesn't run into Laurier Street and Roosevelt Street.
Somebody should explain to Dr. Mann what that means.
I understand what it means, and I think Earl put that, again, I haven't talked to Earl, but I think Earl put that in there as if required. I could be wrong with that, again, I haven't talked to Earl about this, but
We-
if we do that, then I have to rip up those flower beds and all the stuff that's been taught. If I have to, I have to, right? But
No, it just has to maintain the drainage, right?
Right, so right now, when I met Representative Sanford out there, right now, there's kind of a little water sluiceway that comes out right out into the road. And with the addition with the new addition, now you have garden area, so now you're adding more roof line that would then send more water out into the street. So Sanford said that we could put a leaching catch basin to collect the roof runoff from the two gutter lines.
So that's shown on the plan.
That's shown right on the plan, yeah,
So that's what he's proposing to install as mitigation.
correct.
Okay.
And-
So it's on the plan, Doctor, because your engineer put it on there for mitigating water from the site.
yeah, I get that,
So
Yeah.
it doesn't appear to be optional.
It's not optional.
okay.
And the agreement is just that you'll maintain it.
All right. Any other conditions from engineering comments that anybody wants to discuss with Eric? All right, you folks can stay where you are, because I'm gonna ask if does the board members have any other questions for the applicant, the town engineer representative, or Joanne? Seeing none, I'm gonna open the public hearing then.
the people that lined up in the park.
Anybody want to speak on this application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Chair, I move that we approve the plan as presented with the following changes, the deletion of, in the conditions listed on page 9 and 10 of our report, with the deletion of paragraph 9 and the addition of the paragraph that Barbara so elegantly recited.
I think that should go as a note on the plan.
That's a note, that'd be
Oh,
note 21.
That the note be added to the
Becomes
plan.
note 21.
Yeah.
Where are you coming up with, oh, that's where you're coming up with 21.
Yeah.
You kept saying 21, and I'm looking at 15 conditions of approval.
I'm looking at, actually, so the note goes on the
Yeah,
plan.
It's over there, I can't see
Yeah.
it, I'm looking at this.
Yeah. You can steal it.
Plan note 21.
Thank you.
So the additional condition on the approval will be the addition of a note on the plan stating.
What Barbara said.
So I'll second that.
Okay, motion to approve with condition. Jim has made a motion, Kimberly has seconded the motion. Do we have any staff considerations, Joanne, at this time, or is everything good?
No, everything sounds good.
Okay. And this is classified as an amended site plan?
Yes, we had an older site plan on file.
So Jim, your motion is for the amended
I
site
think
plan?
we have the amendment to the existing site plan.
All right, so the motion's been made and seconded to approve the plan with some changes, conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. You're all set, Doctor.
Thank you. I have no idea what those drainage things were. I guess I'll find out.
Earl will tell you.
He'll tell me.
Okay. So, the next item on the agenda is an other business. Other
Not even
business.
with my glasses.
Is there any reason for Eric to stay for the zoning amendment portion of our discussion, Joanne?
I don't believe so, unless
That's nothing else to say.
Unless you want to propose a zoning amendment, Eric.
Thank you.
Take care, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Joanne, could you give us the rundown on what we're doing with the proposed
Sure.
amendment discussion?
So we had our first review of the changes, I believe it was on the 4th of November, and now I've amended them based on your review from that meeting. And this will be our last time looking at these before the hearing, which will be on December 9th, because we don't have a meeting between now and then. So I just want to go over them one more time to make sure everyone's good.
Can you be brief?
Excuse me?
Can you be brief?
Sure.
Thank you.
The first one you've already looked at and you were fine, dwelling unit, comma, seasonal. So we can skip that
Are
one.
we going through using the document you sent us?
The document, yes.
Could you tell us what page you're on when you do that, so?
I don't see any page numbers on
We have
here.
ours numbered, that's why I asked.
Mine is not numbered because mine was the original, so,
Or
Roman
am I
numeral-
all
Is it
solar?
Roman numeral 6?
yes, that's, the first one is Roman numeral 6. I can just read off the page numbers from the zoning ordinance if that's helpful.
I'm trying to figure out
Okay.
where I'm looking. This is all the solar stuff.
No, this, under this packet. I think we're going through this packet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
We're going through this packet.
On the table.
one
I thought it was in
that
my
you
bring home packet.
sent. No, no.
Thank you.
There.
You can share this with
Thank you very much, everyone.
Is that the same that was emailed to us?
Yes. It's just now printed. So the first page is Roman numeral 6, and at the top of the page, dwelling unit, comma, seasonal, there were no changes to that, so. everyone's
Can I
good.
make a recommendation, just in a typical alphabetical listing that should follow
No,
the regular
yes.
dwelling
It's
unit,
different.
not preceded?
Separate.
Sure, we can do
And
that.
Separate. Yeah,
Are
separate.
these the exclusive list of conditions, or can there be others?
There can be others, we normally would put them under section 5. I mean, we could put most of them under section 5, or all of them under section 5, but this is how it was in the zoning ordinance, and the language was not changed under the definitions.
Ain't broke, don't fix it. When we rewrite the ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is Roman numeral 7, and that is the groomer, animal daycare, trainer. And the definition is an establishment in which dogs or domesticated animals are groomed or trained with no overnight housing.
What about the
But we're
daycare?
up to page 8, we're not there.
Doggy
The
daycare.
daycare is,
But the title says groomer,
Yes.
animal daycare trainer, but your definition does not include daycare. And usually under rule of statutory construction, the titles don't have any.
oh,
Significant,
okay, I see
so-
what you mean, add daycare, okay. Okay. Does anyone have any others? It's this page here, Roman numeral 7, says select board, and then says groomer.
Right.
R7 is different than.
Yeah, because we don't have the red.
Oh.
That's what's wrong.
Do you have a grayish color?
Yep. We
Yeah.
have some,
Yeah,
They're not all red.
I don't know why, okay.
Not to be difficult, but wouldn't it make sense to call it animal daycare, grooming and training? Because groomer and trainer are the, because who's gonna think, it says in Matt, you're gonna see it in the text, it's just, who's gonna think to look for groomer when you're looking at the doggy daycare?
Right.
so you have to move it back to the
I
A's.
thought of that, and then I thought, well, what's the thing that most people would be coming in and asking for? And it's normally groomer.
Well, but Tim's going to see a groomer in New York City to get dressed up for the planning board meeting, so, you know, I don't care, it just seems a little odd.
But I never stayed
That's that
overnight,
one.
Jim.
Okay.
What's your preference?
So it's under.
It seems to be animal daycare.
It probably should lead with animal,
Yeah.
because that way animals get groomed, trained, and
Daycare.
daycared, so.
Okay.
So we're
Does
gonna
that move it
strike,
to the A's then?
Strike
You're gonna
groomer?
move it to the A's.
No, I
you're
keep
keeping
going,
the-
just-
You're just changing the order, it's
Yeah.
gonna start
Okay.
with A.
But I need to move it into the A.
Yes, you do,
Yeah,
because that's.
okay. I thought you said no. Okay, the next page, Roman numeral 8, institutional, and the only thing that was changed was residence. It was residential before. That was Jim's suggestion. Okay, Roman numeral number 9, kennel, an establishment in which dogs or domesticated animals are housed, groomed, bred, boarded, trained, or sold, all for a fee or compensation. I don't know why that last part of that sentence was in there before. I don't know if it's really needed.
Mr. Chair,
Please,
to
just take
distinguish
up.
that from the daycare, that was the doggy daycare we just renamed.
So this one allows you to also do breeding, boarding, where the other one, you can,
But if,
it's just daycare, not overnight.
but if you're grooming a dog, are you a kennel or a doggy daycare?
Could be
If you're
both.
grooming,
Could be
you're,
both.
you have no overnight
Well,
care.
but this doesn't say that. This doesn't say overnight.
Okay, so it should be added then.
Well, it
Overnight
says
care.
boarded.
I think the idea was originally the housed reference was supposed to be somehow telepathically letting everybody know that meant overnight.
Right, but we can change that to
I think the words
housed
all for,
overnight.
I think the words all for a fee or compensation should be stricken.
Yeah, I think that should too.
But
So this would be an established, so instead of or sold, put at the end of it, on a daily or overnight basis,
Okay.
or something to that
I-
effect.
I think there's a reason for the compensation though, but my recollection is that we had some issues quite a while back with people claiming that they weren't doing it as a business. And I think this
I see what you're saying.
Was it because we had some that were quite a bit of a nuisance, and there wasn't anything that could be done, because there was nothing that the code enforcement and could stop the nuisance, and there were several neighbors that had the issue. So it was a kennel, and they were saying, well, but we don't charge for it.
So how do you differentiate between that and one that says for a fee or compensation? They can still make that claim.
No, I understand, but I guess I'm probably not explaining it correctly, but I think it was put in there to differentiate whether or not that was somebody that had a couple of dogs, and let's say their friend's dog came over and stayed there for a couple of days while they were away.
Boy, that's micromanaging this world.
Seems like,
It has to find, if you have a couple of dogs,
right.
you train them overnight, you really count.
Well, right, if you have dogs and someone stays overnight with their own
I mean, what if you have a
dog,
service dog?
you're not a kennel.
Phil,
If
do
you've
you
got
have
the
any?
14
Yeah, but I don't
month
think a
training.
service dog comes under, I think a service dog legal.
If you have a service dog, you're housing it for a 14-month period to socialize and train it. So that would be a domesticated animal, which is housed.
Well, before we strike those words, Phil, is there somewhere in your recollection when or how long ago or who was on the board or when that was added? Do you remember who you
I
could
think it has
ask?
something to do up on Gorham Pond Road.
But I mean, is there somebody you could ask or someplace you could check to find out why that was added?
There is no one left except Phil.
Well, we'll get Bob Wheeler back here, wherever he lives.
No, the only one that might know, because I think it was,
Well, I don't want
Before
I don't want
March.
state-specific addresses. I just would like to
no,
find out.
I'm not
if-
saying the address, but the only one that might have a recollection might be Mark, the building inspector.
Well, is it worth a conversation before we make a decision to strike it, Kimberly?
Didn't we have commercial kennel here before, and then we took the word commercial out? Wasn't that, I mean, I thought commercial kennel worked because it points out that you have, right, you might have somebody that has a kennel and has a whole bunch of dogs, but that's their homeowner kennel versus commercial kennel. I thought it worked, but I don't remember why we
Well, I
struck
mean,
it.
maybe we were trying to be consistent, because I note that when you go down to lodging home, it says for compensation. So that might have been why, what we were trying to do with the commercial aspect of it, to distinguish it.
So we should leave for compensation so that it mirrors the same,
Well,
I think it
statement.
does make an important point, that it's not
Right.
just the homeowner's kennel.
So leave it in?
I think for compensation would be fine to leave at the end, not all for a fee, or just, that way it matches the wording on lodging house and it makes consistent language within the,
all right, but then I made the mistake of looking at the big book, and if I look at Hotel Inn, it just says where guests are required to register, but it does not contain for compensation.
Hotel?
Hotel Inn. So we should add
Page here.
page
Right there.
7 of the ordinance, that definition, Hotel Inn, we should add for compensation to the end of that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to.
every time you try to fix these, it gets worse.
I know, that's what happens when you do this, that's why things should just be sometimes started from scratch again.
Is everybody
I
good?
don't, you know, family group daycare home, we don't have compensation in, this is a bigger discussion
And doggy daycare
than doggy
accounts.
daycare.
Can we add for compensation and with overnight housing to distinguish it from animal
Just the
daycare?
other one.
Sure.
Yeah, let's just deal with the animal
And
one.
then move on?
Yeah, okay.
With overnight housing instead of the other.
So does
Yeah.
Joanne know exactly what you're saying to write in? Everybody clear with Joanne, what they want?
Yeah.
We're just gonna stick with our change list.
Okay, the next one on the same page is lot of record. A lot which is part of a subdivision, of record filed in the office of the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds, or a lot or parcel which has been legally described and recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds.
Can we change that to a lot which is part of a subdivision record file, get rid of in the office of, because you don't need that.
Oh, just filed in.
Yeah, in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds.
So get rid of
Or-
the office.
Or a lot or parcel which has been legally created and described in a deed recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds.
So now we got a complete different definition of what we talked about last week and had her
Well,
change it to.
No, I thought that's what we were changing it to last week, but
Okay.
So could you please give Joanne the verbiage so she could write it down?
I can read it, I think I've got it. A lot which is part of a subdivision of record filed in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds, or a lot or parcel which has been legally created and described in a deed recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds. Is that it? Okay. The next page, it's just eliminating seasonal dwelling unit because it's moved over to dwelling unit seasonal.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. Okay, now we're on page 30. We're back to the groomer animal daycare. So this falls under services.
This is starting to feel like chicken.
No,
Who's gonna reword that so animal daycare comes first so it matches the definition?
and you don't need the phrase with no overnight animal boarding, because that's in the definition.
Okay.
We've already said it, if you look at the defined term.
Okay, so above that, it says kennel with or without external animal areas. That's fine, right? Because the kennel is the one that they can be outside.
Can't we just say kennel?
We could,
I mean, that's, we define kennel as kennel.
okay.
With or without external.
Okay.
Yeah, either one, totally.
So are you okay with the zones that this would, that the groomer, animal daycare trainer would fall under? Agricultural, it would be permitted, and then conditional use for RSBOD and village commercial, and then permitted for commercial, industrial flex. Is everyone okay with that?
Why would you not permit it in the conservation district? The big lots.
You could,
There's no slash there, so it looks like there's a missing spot there.
yeah. I think we talked about that, but didn't come to a conclusion the last time.
Well, then, what's the consensus on having it be a permitted use in the conservation district, which is a 5-acre zone,
You're permitted in agricultural.
which is a 2-acre zone?
Yeah.
Right.
So I would think that that is a larger zone, so it should be considered permitted in the conservation zone as well.
Everybody good with that?
Is there a difference between any requirements from the side yard that the kennel could be?
Well, it has to follow the zone.
Building, there would be a building.
No, further in section 5, we'll get to that, but there is an explanation about in the agricultural zone, you need to have, so many acres and it has to be set back from the property next door and all of that, so we'll get to that
Okay.
as we get further in.
So are we in agreement, we're going to permit it in
I'm not.
Kimberly?
Isn't conservation to not have business development in it? I mean, isn't this a business? What is this CO? That's a conservation?
Conservation.
So why would we want business there?
Because the
Is it-
reality is conservation are just 5-acre building lots.
Well, does conservation zone specifically deny commercial use?
I don't know, is there anything?
Agricultural zone
I
denies
don't know.
commercial
I don't
use.
see- I don't
Well,
see.
there's business use in the agricultural
Yeah.
zone, but I don't have zoning
You
right.
could have a family daycare home and
You can have a municipal building in conservancy.
You can have one of them anywhere, they just build it.
Well, specifically, well, that's
They
like.
don't even ask.
you have a family daycare, why can't you have a animal
Permitted
daycare?
parks, permitted stable.
Okay, I wasn't sure what really the conservation zone was entailing.
Well, there is a description for it.
Like, there's nothing, like motor vehicle sales, there's nothing
The concert-
permitted. It's
conservation district is established to conserve natural resources, wildlife habitat, and open space, to protect watersheds
We allow
and water
family
supplies.
daycares in conservancy.
So I guess are there parcels in conservation that don't have like deed restrictions where there's no development anyway? Like I know a lot of our green space has, you don't,
Sure.
Yeah. But we do have other lots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's conservation district over on Lesnick Road. I looked at a lot over there before I bought a lot of
I'm
them.
conservation.
So,
Okay.
in a conservation district, you can actually do a school, a church, a nonprofit community center, a municipal building.
Okay, all right. I wasn't
So
aware
we're
of
Kind
gonna-
of strange, but,
Well,
Lots of stuff.
Municipal, we're exempt from zoning, so.
right.
So we're
that's true.
gonna agree that it would be permitted in the conservation district, and then you're going to provide an explanation similar to the one for the agricultural district for the sideline setbacks and all that.
Yes.
So we'll put a P in that spot right there.
So basically, what we want is to have the restrictions that are in the ag zone for that.
You could make them stricter if you wanted,
Well, basically, you want them to be the same, I
I would
assume.
say the same is adequate,
Sure.
as long as, if it protects the 2-acre zone, it'll certainly protect the 5-acre
Right.
zone.
Why wouldn't you allow kennels in the commercial district?
Because I think a kennel, when I think of kennels, I think of larger facilities, but usually they're out in a more rural area. And lots of times, if there's a large open area where the dogs run, you have lots of barking. So typically, they're not just on, your main road where you have,
But
your
it is
bakery
it
and
is a
your.
business, and they like visibility to the people driving by.
I'm not
Any
saying
other
it shouldn't be, I'm just saying that's what the difference would be. But if you want to try that, that's fine by me.
I think we should have
just
some,
think
I think we should do some research on it
We-
before we
we run
just
in-
decide to throw it into the commercial
At the
zone.
last minute.
We run into problems with people not wanting to have their business. Like if you had your office, and you wouldn't want it necessarily to be next to barking dogs all
Except
day.
barking lawyers.
Well, what if you were Dr. Mann and all of a sudden one wanted to come in right next door to where you did your surgery during the daytime?
It would have to be the restrictions.
There is a house, or it used to be a house, next to the Goffstown, or across the street from the Goffstown Animal Hospital
it's gonna be a
on
daycare.
Roosevelt Street and Mass Road, where they did go to the zoning board to try and put in a kennel, and because they needed, I think it was a variance, I'm not positive, but they were turned down by the zoning board for that very reason.
Yeah, I withdraw the question, no, it's a good reason, we just ask the question,
Well,
not advocating.
Okay.
let's move on and get some, if you want to consider it, we need to get some research on it, find out what other towns permit kennels in what zones, and if they've had problems, same idea.
So the next two, pages 33 and 36, are for the solar. Can we just put that aside for now until we talk about solar and continue on with the changes? Okay, so the next one, we decided at the last meeting we were going to eliminate section 4.2.4 lot size that had to do with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. So nothing's changed with that one.
And you just renumbered the rest so that they number in order?
Yes. Page 48, we're back to roomers and daycare. 5.6, the word commercial was eliminated. And so I added, commercial kennels are permitted by special exception, provided that, now this is for the agricultural zone, provided that they are located on lots of not less than 2 acres and that no buildings or structures for commercial kennel are are located within 100 feet of any lot line. Now, in our table of uses, it already says that they need a special exception in the agricultural district. But for some reason, in section 5, it just said that they're permitted. So that's why I added by special exception.
So we have to go back to that table of uses for services, and if if you're gonna permit kennels in the, also in the
This is
no,
for
the
agricultural.
conservation zone, because you stated not less than 2 acres. Well, the conservation zone is 5 acres, so they could by right say, well, I'm greater than 2 acres, I'm in the conservation zone.
Right,
happened-
so when this was written, the conservation zone was not part of that thought process. So if you want to add a second paragraph of what would be required, would you still want a special exception?
I think you do, because of all the concerns you raised.
Okay.
So, did I not write something incorrectly? Number 8, we had animal daycare groomer trainer, we put a permitted in the conservation zone. But above it, kennels does not permit with a special exception in the conservation zone. Are we saying that we should consider having special exception for the conservation zone for kennels as well? Because you stated not less than 2 acres.
Yes, so we had that conversation about the groomer, but I guess your question is,
My question is on kennels.
do you want to do the same as you did for the groomer?
Because if we don't want kennels in the conservation zone, we gotta strike the words located lots of not less than 2 acres and state in the agricultural zone.
Right, and for some reason, I didn't rewrite this 5.5.2.5, and that's the way it's written in here, but it doesn't match up with the table of uses. Like, this can really drive you crazy after a while, because nothing makes any sense here.
So I have to rewritten.
So
We should use
this
our budget,
reads-
we should vote to use our budget to have these things rewritten. We have $10,000 a year budget, right?
No, we've already got stuff in the pipeline for
Yeah,
this.
Derek's put it in the budget for next year.
Good.
This says, in the agricultural, conservation open space, residential 1 and residential 2, on lots smaller than 2 acres in size, you can have poultry if you do these things. And then the next section is kennel, and that is talking about the well, see, it's applying to any of those districts.
That's right, that's why it's very, when you say
Provided
lots
they're
of not less than
located
2 acres, that's very broad. You need to specialize that statement. If you want to leave it the way the table meets now, you got to take it out and say in the agricultural zone.
But this is the way it's written now.
I don't care how it's written now.
I'm just saying, it doesn't say by
We
special
get it,
exception.
Joanne, but we need to
We need
sort
to,
of make
we
it
need to get, we
consistent.
need to make that more clear. It's not clear right now. So if we're gonna leave the table of uses the way it is, where kennels are not permitted in the conservation zone, and by special exception in the agricultural zone, that needs to be worded to say located in the agricultural zone, and get rid of on lots not less than 2 acres. Then it matches up to what our table of uses provides a special exception for.
I think what happened is this probably got looked at when they were doing the whole poultry thing with the 2
Yeah, I don't
acres.
know.
Well, one of the issues could be is we do have agricultural lots that are lots of record
Right.
that are undersized lots. I mean, we have people
Right.
come in to get a building permit on an agricultural piece of land that's just big enough to get a septic system on.
Well, then state the agricultural zone
I'd leave in if not less than 2 acres.
in the agricultural zone, or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, you said it.
So now you're saying, don't put anything for the conservancy?
No, we're gonna leave it out. That we have to change the table of uses again.
Okay, we'll just leave it out then,
Unless you wanna put it in, unless the board
No.
wants to put it in.
I think.
I don't see why we're not allowing kennels in conservancy.
Well, you can always have this paragraph pertain to agricultural and then have a new one
Why
pertain.
would you need to? Why wouldn't the rule just be you can't have less than 2 acres?
For both zones.
Whether you're in conservancy or agricultural, right? That's,
Right.
Well, that's what it states right now. You just have to change the table of uses to include it.
right, you just
In
need to
the
put a
conserv-
P in the permitted
No, as
conservancy.
special exception,
Special exception.
same as this is now. Because agricultural is special exception for kennels. It's on the table of uses right now.
I think the rest of it is good. I mean, you're protecting with at least 100-foot
Okay, but
buffer around it.
special exception.
Well, that's the way it is now.
Well, like as I explained before, depending on, I guess the way it's always been, has been a special exception, and it's really depends on where it's located in the commercial, I'm sorry, agricultural. Because like Phil said, there are some small lots out there, and if you have a kennel and you have just a permitted use, then they just get their planning board site plan approval, and they're allowed to do it. And
What happens if someone has an R1? Could you have an R1 lot that's more than 2 acres, Phil?
Sure.
Sure. It's
So
just
you
not
could-
been subdivided yet.
So here we go with, now you can, if you leave on lots of not less than 2 acres without defining what that means, you could do it, someone could come in and say, well, in the R1 I can do
No,
it.
the table of uses still controls.
It does still,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, it's not, it's the only place right now where you could do it is agricultural by special exception.
So if we were to leave the language alone that's written in there for kennel, not change anything, and then add the special exception to the conservation zone on the table of uses, does that meet everyone's approval?
Fine by me.
I don't see why not.
Sounds fine to me.
Anybody have any problems with adding special exception to that table of uses?
I just have a question. Do you think anyone, because it's listed in the table but not specified here, that it's just for
No,
those
the table
particular
controls.
zones, they wouldn't argue the fact?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's not, you don't specify agricultural zone in there either. You just say
No.
lots of greater than 2 acres.
Right.
So if we go back to our table of uses, D, services, financial, medical, and professional, and add in special exception for kennels in the conservation zone, then it matches up to the wording in the,
Okay.
in the kennel.
If you look at the introduction to the dimensional standards, 4.0, it probably doesn't apply. Never mind, I'm reading it out of context. Forget that.
Okay.
Can we get rid of 5.6.1? That's just a definition. We already have a definition. Why you want to state it twice? That's the
We have a
defi-
definition.
That's the definition, we
yes.
just put in the
Okay.
definitions.
Let's take it out then.
Yeah.
This one.
Virginia, we're gonna have
Scratch
to
it.
reorder the title, so get rid of it.
Okay, then we get into the whole solar thing again. And
So
that's-
other than
that's
solar,
it.
that was everything?
Yes.
Okay.
So, has anyone had a chance to read through?
There's something out of
Oh.
order.
Did
Oh,
you
I'm
want to,
sorry.
did you want to discuss the wetland issue now or solar first?
I think we should do it now.
Okay. Okay, so, I was looking through the requirements, and I'm sorry, I was late to the party on all of this, but, so, recently, so what happens is we have wetland buffers, and people have to come to us for relief of the outer 50 foot of the buffer. And the subdivision, I'm sorry, the development requirements say that they have to have a report of the functions and values, an assessment of the functions and values and condition of all existing wetland resources. So that's what I'm reading from that's what the development regs say. And we typically get a report of the functions and values. And recently, it has been, it's just lacking any information that really tells us the necessary information about the wetland. And in a couple examples recently, they've been wetlands where the wetland scientist is convinced that it's just a junky wetland, when actually, when I go to look at the resources that I would look at as a professional if I were permitting that project, it is within several state delineated protection zones. So what I'm asking is, and upon further review, the zoning in 13.3.4 only says a report from a certified wetland scientist. So what I'd like to make is 2 changes. I'd like to add that language from the development reg into 13.3.4 so that they're the same, so that they have to provide us a report on the functions and values. And then I also added several parameters that they really need to identify to us that tells us more about the wetland. And I don't think these are onerous because they are something that you can look up online within a 20-minute time period, and it's something that I always look up when I get the reports. So the wetland scientists, we're not adding anything particular. So is it a priority resource area, which is in the new New Hampshire DES wetland rules? That's a bog or a floodplain wetland. Are the wetlands within the protected buffer of a designated river? Are they within the protected shoreland? And that's, I referenced the Shoreline Protection Act. And are they identified on the Wildlife Action Plan as highest ranked habitat? That's easy. Those are all parameters you can see in the Wetland Permit Planning tool. And then the last one is it habitat for a state listed species? And you can find that on New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau.
The one question I had was on the highest ranked wildlife habitat. Patty told me that the Conservation Commission, or I guess the town, has never adopted that. I don't know, I wasn't here at the time, but.
Yes, there was a disagreement when it came forward, and I understand the point. This is I think David Neiman would expound on it nicely. The concept is kind of garbage in, garbage out. These maps are created by data that gets put into the system, and it's not always the most up-to-date system, but it is the only available tool we have to give us an idea of where wildlife habitat is. So is it perfect? No. And that's why we send the wetland scientist out there to do something. So, the wetland scientist says, hey, listen, it's shown as purple on the Wildlife Action Plan, but, it's really just a junky mode agricultural field. That's the kind of thing that we could discuss. But I think that it's important for these important resource layers to be reviewed and presented to us to say, is this valuable or not? So.
Mr. Chair, I didn't want to sneeze at David again, so I'm going to sit over here. That was kind of weird. Yeah, sorry, David.
So it's just adding more specific parameters to this report that they already have to provide for us, and it's easily obtainable information, and it's free. So I don't think I don't have any qualms in asking the wetland scientists to do this.
Members?
Well, I have a question on you mentioned that this information was fairly easy to get, that should it be specified in there where the information comes from? Because if it's not specified in there, when you look at this, is this something that is being required that's above and beyond something that's available online?
I'm hesitant to put any sort of online links or references in here because as something changes. Like the Wetland Permit Planning tool is a very new online tool that DES issued, and I don't think it's going away. I think it's an awesome tool. So that's why I referenced that, but I wouldn't put a hyperlink in here because, those things change.
Well, not necessarily to hyperlink, but where the information, just so that when you read it,
I mean, like a broad stroke New Hampshire DES or something?
Yeah, let's say for example, and I'm just using an example, when you have this invasive species, there's an invasive species list that you can reference.
Right.
Let's say you want to identify certain species or make sure that certain things are in here as referenced on that list by the DES. Can this vernal pools, let's say, for example, and I don't know exactly, but you say, are they vernal pools as designated by something? Is there something in there where these could be listed that?
I don't know, doesn't it
So
sort of do that?
it actually does, Phil. I mean, I think
But
as a professional, someone who reads this, so the priority resource area is identified by the New Hampshire DES. It's on the Wetland Permit Planning tool. It's also in the wetland rules too. And then are the wetlands within the designated river? Are the wetlands within the Protected Shoreline Water Quality Protection Act? So I did cite the RSA there. And then are they identified as the Wildlife Action Plan? So they have to look up the Wildlife Action Plan. And then are they state listed species identified by New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau? So this is all actually also information that you would submit for a wetland permit. So if they have to have a wetland permit for the project, they're going to look all this up anyway.
Okay.
So, but I do appreciate your point. I mean, but I just think that somebody who's writing this report knows this already.
Right. And I guess I'm asking that because, as usual, we have the discussion, and it's clear to us. Down the road, it may not be the same clarity to a different group that's looking at it, and there's an applicant here, and
Right.
it could cause issues. That's
Well, and
all.
I think the important point is that this specifies that the report needs to be developed by a certified wetland scientist. So they should know this.
Okay,
And they should have been providing it to us, frankly, but we'll specify it now.
okay.
Barbara?
I guess my question is, we get an awful lot of requests for waiver of the wetlands report. So is this just going to increase that? And how as a board do we manage that? Because what you just said is, you know, they come in, they say it's sort of junk, and then I might go out there and say, not junk. And I will tell you, I've sat here many times and listened to these wetlands report, which I think we've recently heard are pretty subjective in a lot of cases, where they tell us the wetlands haven't changed in 5 years or other stuff, which I can't say out loud is complete nonsense because I'm not a wetland scientist, but common sense tells you is not. So
Right.
how does the board negotiate what I would anticipate is going to be more waiver requests, actually? Because, you know, getting a wetland scientist for some of these lots is probably not reasonable.
So what I think is happening, and what I hope is happening, is the very fact that we're asking for this report and that they have to spend money doing this
They already have
makes
to get
them
a wetland
rethink
scientist.
their site design. So instead of just plowing through the 50-foot buffer and coming in and saying, yeah, we're putting in a process that says you have to do something, and I actually think it's very true. Like they're avoiding it already, like the ones we don't see, because they don't want to do this. And then we do get people who do this, who come in and say, listen, I looked at the site, this is the only place to put, say, my driveway or whatever. And then you have to get the professional wetland scientist. This is a $1,500 expense. I don't think that's excessive, even for a homeowner. I don't think that's excessive. And when we're looking at the protection of our buffers. And I think that this is, you know, so that I wasn't available to attend a lot of meetings this fall. And so I think that this gives people some additional resources to say, hey, wetland scientists, you're telling me that this is in protected shoreline, protected wildlife habitat, protected designated river, and yet you're still telling me that this wetland is of no value. Because that's what I saw twice come through this fall, and I couldn't be here to talk about it, but you gotta be kidding me. So,
So this would improve the reports that they're submitting
Yes.
to us,
Right.
because they would have a lot more
If you
information.
can do that, that would be good.
right, it's not an additional report, I think it's beefing up the report.
And making it clear what it's
Right.
expected to.
But
Okay.
some of this language is contained, or not some of it, but a small portion of it, is contained in the development regs, which I told Kimberly we're not looking at doing at, tonight.
Right.
So she thought it might be a good idea to at least start with including it in the zoning.
Well, I don't have.
Right.
but-
Because
I mean,
right
think
now,
it's a
all
good
it
idea.
says
I
is
think
a
our
report.
reports have been I
Yeah.
think I think the reports have been horrible.
And you know, they asked for a waiver, just deny the waiver. Jim wants to speak, but you're gonna have to get closer to a microphone. Jim.
Well, I won't, because I don't want to sneeze on David again, he'll club me with his bicycle. The only term that should be defined is designated river.
You're right,
The other
I don't
terms-
have a site on that one,
The other
so,
terms are, but that's not.
okay. Joanne, I can provide an edit for that.
Okay.
I'm okay with adding this to the list.
Okay, good.
Members, anybody else concur with Barbara that we should be thinking about adding this to the list for this year? Jim does. David, are you yesing or knowing?
No, nothing to add.
No, were you okay adding it to the list?
Are you
for
okay
zoning
adding
change?
it?
Okay.
I am. Mark, Phil?
Okay.
So why don't you try to tidy it all up and
Okay.
we'll get it submitted. Thank you for that work. So Joanne, we're back to the solar thing. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, so in your packet, I had included the New Hampshire model ordinance as well as the Harrisville shorter ordinance. which I think some people seem like they might prefer that one over this long one. But in the table of contents, it's also added in two separate sections. One is under transportation, communications, and utilities, and that would be for the large commercial type. And then the other was added under accessory to principal residential uses, which would be, you know, someone doing it on their own residential property for their house. So I don't know where you want to start, or if you prefer one or the other, or I don't know who's had a chance to read this.
I move that we throw out this and use the Harrisville one.
I thought you were gonna say.
Because I think this, it looks like a what's the term? Somebody threw a lot of terms into a pot and just kind of shook it up. And it combines procedure and regulations.
It went all over the place.
So, and I did talk to the planner of certain unnamed adjoining larger town that we represent. They don't have the solar ordinance.
No.
Thinking of it, they do have setback requirements. They rely on those.
Is it in here? Is it in this thing?
It's
Okay,
in
so
that one.
Harrisville is only 3 pages,
Where's that?
Do we have
and it's included in,
Something you sent home with us?
yes, there was, everything was stapled together, and it was right in front of
I've got
You
the,
got
state
page 18.
I got the
model.
town of Derry's,
It says on the bottom, page 76 of 79.
okay,
And then, so it's 3 pages long,
starting with,
page 76 of 79. Not Derry's, we're looking at
Harrisville.
Harrisville.
The only thing, my only comment on this was that the thing that brought this to my attention, which was the issue of the bond for disposition, was not contained in this one, but Derry has it. So they have a decommissioning on page 13 that deals with it and references that we can require a bond. But,
May I comment? Tim?
Please, just
So
speak
I
up.
agree with the concept. The wording in the dairy one suggests it applies to all solars, but many, the residential, wouldn't come before us. So if you're going to require it, define when you're going to require it. And you could add it on page 20 of the packet on
Right.
the Harrisville under general standards, if you want to put it something.
just add it at the end, yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
But it, yeah. but
So the suggestion is to take the Derry's section E decommissioning with the words beyond it and bring that over to,
I would not take all those words. I'd shorten that to about a sentence. That the planning board may require a security decommissioning or something.
well, we'll need verbiage for that if we're going to move it over, that's all.
Well, Joanne, find the verbiage for the towers and use the verbiage for the towers, because that's in conjunction with planning. That's in conjunction with plans that we have that language, and that's the only way we would have it, right? Residential,
Right.
So we're gonna take the decommissioning, take the verbiage from the towers, add it to the decommissioning, and then move that over to the general standards of the Harrisville section.
The one thing that I liked in the Harrisville that was not included in the Derry, my papers are all mixed up here, was the mentioning of the heritage.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
historic
You
district.
highlighted
Historic
it,
district.
30.3.
I do have to admit that I groaned when I saw a table though.
Okay.
All right, and so we need to talk about the permitted uses, because we don't have something called lakeside residential.
Right.
Well, technically we
That's
do,
our
we have
packet.
Glen Lake.
Well, but we don't have a zone.
Oh, I see what you're saying, the zone.
Well, that's why we have it here in the other packet.
I think we just have to rename the system, the,
So you're not going to include this table, you're going to keep it in our table, right?
Yeah, it's on 33 and 36. she's
Right.
got proposed.
Right, and so I wasn't sure, because the residential systems don't come here and they're permitted according to the New Hampshire Building Code, do we need to even mention them? Because they're allowed according to the building code.
Well, no, we don't. We should stick to the area.
Building code and zoning are different.
No, I realize that, but it's something we don't deal with at all. It's not really,
Well,
Apparently, we don't have any control.
We're writing a zoning ordinance, not a planning board reg, so we want to permit it, even though it doesn't, the zoning ordinance contains a lot of stuff that doesn't come before us, but still zoning, so.
Oh, I see what you're
Okay.
saying.
so.
Well, and it gives the code enforcement, when somebody calls to complain, they get to say, solar energy system residential is permitted.
You just got to change the language on those columns to match up with the language for our zones,
Okay.
lakeside residential.
This is done without a whole lot of study, but if we want to get something in, because Barbara said they're coming. But this, not necessarily the final word, but I'd
Right.
rather start
And
with
we can
something
amend it as time goes
I'd rather
by.
start with something simple and add to it,
Right.
than start with something I can't even read.
Okay, so have a sort of a general consensus from members on whether we're going to use the Harrisville zoning ordinance. I'll start with Jim. What's your statement?
Yes, I mean, we can adapt it to, anything we want to do, but I think it's a simple ordinance that works as a starter and doesn't bog us down with complicated procedures.
Dave?
I agree with Jim.
Kimberly?
Yeah, I like it, Harrisville.
Barbara?
Harrisville.
I like Harrisville. Gail, I want you to weigh in.
I agree.
Okay, Mark
Yes, sir, Harrisville.
and Phil.
Harrisville.
And Harrisville has a pickle festival every year, so it has to be.
Well, it's not mentioned in here, so let's just leave that out for now. So we are going to, Joanne, we're going to use the Harrisville zoning ordinance
Okay.
for our submittal this year,
As modified by.
with some modifications.
And so where are we going to have Joanne put it?
Make a new section.
So we have telecommunication facilities, so are we going to make this section 11 solar energy systems?
Sounds like a plan.
What about alternative systems? So if anything
Here,
else
Phil,
came up, it
there's
would
a
be...
spare one of these things over here.
Alternative energy systems? Well, no, because this is solar. I mean,
Specific, okay. Well, we
we've
go-
actually got something in here on wind. Don't get me going on that. It mentions it, but then doesn't really do anything with it. But I think solar is much more of a current issue than wind is going to be.
Okay.
For this area of the country, it's too hilly. There's
Well, we
lots
are
of
the
them.
cloudiest state in the union, so it does make you wonder what we're doing with solar panels, but
Except
that's a
for
discussion
California,
for
where the
another day.
wildfires are burning.
There are lots of wind turbines out west.
All right, so any more review of the proposed 22 zoning amendments? Joanne, do you have any more items to review?
No, I'm good.
Okay, members, does anybody have anything else to review for the zoning amendments? So where are we with these, Joanne? Are these ready to be finalized for the meeting?
Yes, so I will put this together again and we will mail it out in plenty of time for you to take a look at it before the hearing. And we have lots of time for the hearing because according to the schedule, well, let me back up a minute. The petitioned timeline is November 8th through December 8th, so that's almost over. And our first hearing will be the 9th, the next day. So we'll know by then whether we have any petitions, but they won't be held on that night because we have to advertise. I have not heard of anyone coming in with anything, but sometimes they come in at the last minute. So the last day to post and publish for the first meeting is January 6th. So this gives us like plenty of time if we have to have a third hearing. But hopefully we'll just have two and then we'll include the petitioned in the second one and any amendments that may happen at the first. I don't see a big crowd coming.
All the dog lovers.
Maybe.
You never know. Who knew what would happen with the chickens?
That's true. They were, for a while there, they really caused a stir everywhere. That happens with everything though, and then a few years later, it's,
All right, enough chicken talk.
Something
What else we got left here tonight? Anything?
that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Everybody good with that motion?
Second.
Motion's been made to adjourn by Phil, seconded by Selectman Representative Mark Lemay. Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes.